Hey everyone, Ethan here at Rotojoes, back again with the second half of our March Madness betting preview and game preview. First matchup in the South region, we have Arizona taking on Wright State or Bryant. That game went on tonight. I usually don't care much about the 16 seed games because you usually know they're going to lose. Arizona's really fucking good this year. They have that same Boise State old Gonzaga coach thing where they have a bunch of fucking foreign dudes who will D your ass up. It's going to be hard to beat them. They're seventh in offensive rating, 20th in defensive rating. They utilize, Arizona and Tommy Lloyd utilize a too big spacing that, as a KU fan, we saw up to probably, I want to say, 2016, 2015. Perry Ellis and Landon Lucas were the last two bigs that really got to run high-low. Arizona's doing it, and they're doing it really, 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 really well. They limit their opponents' 2 and 3-point percentages. They're an absolute buzzsaw right now. Like I said yesterday, defense is a lesser variance product in basketball than 3-point reliance or big man production reliance, because most of the time defense is effort. Like individual talent on the defensive end, like if you're 6'7" and you have really long arms, like that's gonna help you be better at defense, but it's mind over matter. So I wouldn't want to see Arizona. We'll talk about them a little later. They're going pretty far for me this year. Next game, 8 seed Seton Hall taking on 9 seed TCU. Let's start in the Seton Hall side. Seton Hall went 21-10 this year. They're 9-10 versus quadrant 1 and 2 teams. Their offensive rating is they're 121st in offensive rating in the nation, 66th in defensive rating. They have 9 players who play over 17 minutes in their rotation right now. So they rotate a lot of guys in. Sometimes Seton Hall, Providence, there's a couple of other, UConn. Regardless of the year and the coach, it seems like every year they're good, and every year they have pretty much the same style of team as the year before, and the year before, and the year before. And they're all lumped together. Lanky, athletic guys who play hard, aren't super skilled. They're going to D you up. They're not going to run anything incredible, but they're betting they can grind you out. And that's what the Seton Hall team is. There's no takeover guys. Roden, their number one scorer, is relatively inefficient. Some teams, this would be a fucking hard matchup. But Seton Hall got thrown up against 9 seed TCU. TCU is 221st in offensive rating, 77th in defensive rating. Mike Miles, like Roden on the other side, is a lead guy, but he's relatively inefficient. Like, I wouldn't want him leading my offense. He can give them boost, though. He can give them energy boost, which all these microwave, think of Marcus Carr, Remy Martin's like this, all these microwave guards, like they're all liable to give you a boost, but they can also take you out of games. TCU's 10th in offensive rebounds. They limit opponents' offensive rebounds. They know themselves. They don't take a lot of threes because they don't make a lot of threes. They force 14 turnovers a game, and they just play extremely hard every night. Jamie Dixon has those guys going and going and going and going and going and going and going. They beat KU, and it wasn't that, this wasn't that long ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, right before the conference tournament. They beat KU. Really bad. They made us look bad. I think TCU, their seeding was fortunate for the first game. They're not going to be able to make it past Arizona. But I actually have TCU winning this one. I have TCU +1 as my line pick, and I'm taking under 130. So TCU beats Seton Hall under 130 total points, and TCU's going to either lose by 1 point or win. Next game in the South Division, we have 5 seed Houston taking on 12 seed UAB. 5 seed Houston, Kelvin Sampson has his guys playing like a pretty generic Kelvin Sampson team. They D their ass off. They're 4th in defensive rating. This year has a twist, though. They're 10th in offensive rating, so they can play on the other side. They're not just if you remember when Quentin Grimes played there, they were amazing on defense, and a lot of their offense was offensive rebounding. It wasn't Quentin Grimes coming off of flare screens, down screens, whatever, hitting threes, and he did a little bit of that, but it was a lot of just grit. And that's something Sampson's teams always seem to have. That's something he seems to instill in them, is that like you're going to play hard on D. We're going to take good shots. We're going to crash the offensive glass. We're going to do all the things that like a hard playing basketball team does. These guys shoot 55% from 2 while only allowing 43.5% shot against them from 2. That's pretty good. They limit their opponent to 29% from 3 on 22 attempts. They close out. They're giving up threes, so they're not over. Just from that, you can tell they're not overly worried about necessarily getting their hand in the passing lane to disrupt the fact that you're going to catch and shoot. They're comfortable closing out because they do it well. 5 out of 6 rotation guys on this team are upperclassmen. These guys block a bunch of shots. It's going to be hard to beat Houston. These teams that are really well coached and that have a little talent become infinitely harder to beat. Think if Arkansas had a go-to guy. They'd be pretty good, but they just don't have that. And that's what Houston has and Sampson's been able to do consistently. I'm actually pretty excited for them in the Big 12. I think they're going to be a really good addition. On the flip side of this matchup, UAB, the 12 seed, it's really unfortunate they got stuck against Houston. These guys are 17th in offensive rating. They're 28th in defensive rating. They're 5-3 versus quad 1 and 2, which is pretty good. Got a little size. They shoot 38% from 3. Jordan Walker, their shooter who shoots the most threes. It seems to be their highest scorer or one of their better scorers. He could get hot and make it really hard for Houston to win. 100%. Outside of that happening, I don't see an avenue for UAB to really make this a game. Houston's too well coached. They play, again, defense is lower variance. And what does Houston do well? They defend. I'm not worried about them losing round 1. So, Houston winning. I have Houston minus 8.5 for my line pick. And I'm going under 136.5 points. Next game, we have Illinois going up against Chattanooga. Real quick, let's go over Chattanooga first. 20th in offensive rating, 94th in defensive rating. Their center, Silvio De Sousa, former chair thrower on the Jayhawks. Love that guy. He plays a lot of minutes. He plays a big role for that team. Glad he's doing well. He deserves it. One thing about KU's not for everyone. A lot of the guys, and it seems like the coaches still really enjoy Silvio, and they're cheering for his success. So that shows you something about his character. Chair throwing be damned. So, glad Silvio's doing all right. Glad he made the tournament. I'm really excited to watch him. However, they got put up against Illinois. Illinois is 39th in offensive rating, 127th in defensive rating. 5 of the top 7 rotation players are upperclassmen. I don't think this Illinois team is as good as last year with DeSumo and Cockburn. They have Curbelo and Cockburn now, but Curbelo's not worked out with his concussion the way we thought he would. My biggest question is, can Curbelo get hot? I mean, if he starts, he's only played, I think it's 8-10 games. He had an almost essentially season-long concussion, which that's a big deal if it lasts that long. It's hard to come back from that. Can he get going? If he can, this team is probably going to make it to the Elite 8, Sweet 16. That veteran leadership's a big deal. They take and they make a lot of threes. They shoot 37% on 25 attempts a game. It's hard to hold a 6'11", 7-foot Kofi Cockburn who is liable to dunk on you at any time. It's hard to hold him one-on-one when you know the other 4 guys on the court can all knock it down. Like I was saying, though, I don't think this is like last year's team with DeSumo. I like Underwood. I don't love Underwood. I think these guys. I think Illinois wins this game pretty handily. I have Illinois -8.5, and I have over 135.5 points. So I think they're going to win pretty handily. However, I wouldn't expect them to go very far. I don't love Cockburn. He's good, but I don't love him. Curbelo, it's unfortunate what happened, but the facts are the facts, and the fact is he's not playing great, and that hurts them. And it's not in his control, but that's just the truth. So, Illinois is going to win this one. I don't love them. Next matchup on the south side of the bracket, one of my favorites, Colorado State, 6 seed, taking on 11 seed Michigan. So, start on that Colorado State side. Colorado State 25-5 on the regular season, 11-4 in their last 15, 11-4 versus quadrants 1 and 2 this year. These guys are 28th in offensive rebounding, 142nd in defensive rating, 28th in offensive rating, not offensive rebounding. David Robbie is their dude. This guy is one of the most unique college basketball players I have seen. He's 6'5", he's 250, looks like a defensive end. Most of the time you don't see big, burly, 6'5" dudes on the basketball court, and Robbie's just out there living, everyone else is living in his world. The other thing about Robbie, again, 6'5", like guard forward, he shoots 45% from 3. So he can go down in the paint, push you around a little bit, take you outside, hit it on you. He's hard to hold. And again, how many college basketball players are prepared to deal with a 250 dude who can move pretty well and can shoot it and this is a really good scorer? That's hard to deal with. They're not. Colorado State isn't the biggest team ever. They shoot 56% from 2 and 35% from 3. They allow a lot of three-pointers against them, which I don't love, but they limit their opponents' makes. They only allow like 32.8% from 3 from their opponents. So they're doing a pretty good job of closing out, despite the fact that they're giving them up initially. They box off really well, and they don't tend to hit the offensive boards, but you see this with some mid-majors that are good. They don't get a lot of offensive rebounds, but you're not getting a lot of offensive rebounds either. Outside of Robbie, you have Isaiah Stevens as another player to watch. He's a 15.5 assist guard for him every night. In the tournament, for one game, a guy can carry you, but you need others to step up, and that's what Colorado State's going to be looking for. Like, who's our second guy outside of Robbie to step up in games past this one? On the other side, Michigan, 59th in offensive rating, 257th in defensive rating. These guys are 8-13 versus quadrants 1 and 2. I really don't know how they made the tournament, to be super honest with you. This was not a good Michigan team. Hunter Dickinson's good. He's a good scorer. I feel like when I watch him, the only move he ever likes to do is left block, catch, left hook. Maybe I just don't watch a lot of Michigan basketball. If I sound stupid, just disregard. But I feel like, and that's not saying he only has one move, I just see him do that lefty hook a lot. They don't turn over the ball much. They don't take many threes. They slow it down a lot. I don't see it with them. I don't know what anyone's expecting a team that was 3 games away from going 500 to do when it came to March, but I have Colorado State winning. I live in Kansas. We don't have sports betting. I saw the line was +1 on Colorado State. I legitimately almost went and downloaded a VPN just to bet on this line. Criminal. Colorado State +1, take that to the bank. Over 137 points, you have 2 teams outside of the top 120 in defensive rating. One of them is in the bottom 100 of defensive rating in the country. Smash that over. Colorado State's going to win. Colorado State probably going to make a little run. They're probably one of my favorite mid-majors. So, like Colorado State quite a bit going into this weekend. Next matchup, 3 seed Tennessee versus 14 seed Longwood. Tennessee is 26-7 this year, 13-7 versus quadrant 1 and 2. Tennessee is 118th in offensive rating and 10th in defensive rating. We talked about it with Seton Hall. We talked about it with Houston. We're going to talk about it again with Tennessee. This is a prototypical Rick Barnes team. They have some athletes. They play their ass off. They don't do anything spectacular offensively, but they make it work. They have some individual talents there that really, really, really make the offense click at times. They're 2-1 against Kentucky this year, and 13-2 in their last 15. Barnes is a good coach. These guys are ready to play. They take the one deviation from a lot of past Tennessee teams. This year's iteration takes and makes a lot of threes. They shoot 35% on 24 attempts. That's not something in the past that a lot of Tennessee teams did. There were a lot of athletes, but they weren't shooting the ball well. And that's this year's team defends well and shoots the three well. It's going to be hard to beat them. They're coming off an SEC tournament win. They're good. They're good. And poor Longwood. Longwood's 52nd in defensive rating and 24th in offensive rating. So they're coming in here probably feeling all right about themselves. But you got to remember how much easier it is to be top 60 in offensive and defensive rating when you literally end up playing maybe 2 quadrant 1 or 2 teams in your whole schedule. If you're beating up on Alabama, Arkansas, School of the Deaf, A&M, what the fuck does that matter? That's not a top 68 team in the country. That's not a top 100 team in the country. And that's what this Longwood team benefits from. They play in a shitty conference. They look really good. I think it's going to be hard for them to defend Tennessee with the lack of athletes they have. Just straight up. They're just not going to be able to do it. They're small, too. I don't know. I'm sure someone will try to get cute with this and say, oh, Longwood, they're top 60 in offensive and defensive rating, and Tennessee can't score. Go Longwood. Don't be that guy. Tennessee's winning. I have Tennessee minus 18. I'm going under 132.5. Tennessee's good. Next game in the South. 7 seed Ohio State versus 10 seed Loyola Chicago. Sister Jean's dancing again. 7 seed Ohio State, 21st in offensive rating, 263rd in defensive rating nationally. 10-10 versus quadrants 1 and 2. E.J. Liddell and Brankham are essentially their 1-2 punch. Brankham's their guard. E.J. Liddell is their 6'7", essentially Jared Solinger. They're not big. Liddell averages like 2.5 blocks and shoots 37% from 3, so there are some really good things going on there. And I like Liddell. He's really fucking good. And he's probably going to have a good game. Even though Loyola's good at defense. E.J. Liddell is going to have his. Is Ohio State going to have enough from everyone else to matter? They shoot the 3 ball really well, 37%. They only take 21 a game, which it's good. It's not terrible, but it's not the best. They're going to score the basketball. They're going to play really efficient offense. I mean, their 5-man shoots threes at 37%. Like, that's hard to hold. On the other end, no size. They don't offensive rebound. They're pretty much a one-trick pony. If they're not scoring the basketball effectively against you, they're probably not winning. They're just really good at scoring the basketball. I don't love this. When it comes to March, I've said it probably 7 times in the last 2 days. When it comes to March, 3-point variance and offensive variance is a lot more likely to happen than defensive variance, especially when you're at high, mid-major, or up. So, yeah, I like Ohio State in some of these 10-7 matchups are probably coming out on top, but I don't like them against Loyola. To talk further about Loyola, they are 32nd in offensive rating in the nation, 23rd on defensive rating in the nation. They're 8-6 versus quadrants 1 and 2. They play in the Missouri Valley, so they're not playing a ton of great teams, but it could be worse for sure, because they could be Longwood. Drew Valentine is building right off of Porter Moser's success. I thought when Moser went to Oklahoma and Valentine took over, it would take a year or two at least. Just new coach, got to get everything through. No, fuck no. They're right back where they were. Right back where they want to be. These guys are a very experienced group. I think essentially the only person who didn't return was Krutwig. Everyone else is back playing. They returned a ton of minutes and a ton of scoring off last year's tournament team. They shoot 38% from the three-point line, and they only allow 61 points per game. Think about how hard that is to deal with. On one end, you can get bludgeoned from three, and on the other end, they're not going to give up shit. We get a conception a lot of times on three-point shooting teams that, oh, they're soft. And they can be. But when a defensive team shoots threes well, that can be a problem. That's what this Loyola team's been doing. Their guard trio, their starting guard trio is absolutely, positively not at all afraid to let it gun from three. I want to say all three guys are over 3 attempts a game. They might all be over 4 attempts a game from three. So they'll gun. They lack a Cameron Krutwig. They don't really have a big that's going to go and, get them a bucket or facilitate when they need to. But this year's team doesn't need it. It's a different team. They have a different dynamic because of the defense, because of the offense, because of the coaching that they're getting and the expectation that's been set within this program. I'm going to have to take Loyola covering half a point. Loyola plus 0.5. And I'm taking under 132.5. I think Ohio State's going to have trouble scoring against Loyola. I think they're going to get bogged down a little bit. And I think Loyola's comfortable playing in a bogged down, slower environment. Loyola is going to, I think they're poised to make a big run this year. Again, I think they're going to be here to stay for a while. Last game in the South in the round of 64, we have Villanova versus Delaware. I got Nova minus 15.5, and I got over 134. Tell me if you heard this before. A Jay Wright team is shooting a ton of threes, making a ton of threes, and they're just overall really, really, really fucking efficient on offense. Heard that one? I have too. It's this year's iteration of Nova, like last year's, like the year before that, like the year before that. I really like what Wright has going on there. He's a smart coach. He's cerebral. He's really, really, really got it figured out, at least at that school, for what they have going on personally. And I haven't thought this through much. I'm just spitballing it right now. If Bill Self retired tomorrow, I think I'd want Jay Wright as his replacement. Now, I might change my mind after I think about it. I like Jay Wright, though. So I feel sorry for Delaware. Like, there's never no chance, but if I could give them the smallest amount of chance I could, I would. I'm just not. Nova's good, and they're well coached. They're going to win their first game. To recap, the South region. I have Arizona beating whatever 16 seed they play. I have TCU beating Seton Hall. Houston taking on Illinois in the round of 32. I have Colorado State and Tennessee taking on each other in the round of 32. And Loyola and Villanova taking each other on in the round of 32. I have Zona Houston in the Sweet 16, and then Colorado State Loyola in the Sweet 16. You heard me right. I have a 6 seed and a 10 seed in the Sweet 16 in the South region. I have Zona and Colorado State in the Elite 8, and Zona's going to the Final Four. I actually have Zona going to the championship. So, really like Zona. Overall, I really like that region. I think that there's a lot of intriguing matchups, and there's a lot of games that are potentially going to be pretty good. Now, to my favorite region, the region we've all been waiting to hear about. We have the Midwest, where your Jayhawks are the first seed. Let's talk about the Jayhawks. I will tell you now, I'm taking Texas Southern to cover plus 22. We always struggle with mid-majors, so I'm comfortable there. I think we're going to beat them. Like, I'm comfortable with us beating them, but fuck, if it was a 5-point game, I wouldn't be surprised. That's just what we do. Ochai is clearly our offensive leader. There are a couple of question marks with Ochai, though. My biggest one is, when do we start taking the ball to the basket a little more? And Ochai's a great scorer. In terms of development, I'd put him right up there with like a Frank Mason in terms of when he came versus when he left. What was that improvement like? I mean, it's crazy, but he's always kind of been not great at, when he has a live dribble, taking it to the rim. Super athletic, great shooter. I love Ochai. But I would really like to see some basket attacks from him. I feel like that would help our offense quite a bit. Is Remy going to keep coming alive? He'll shoot fucking anything. And the energy he brings has been really important for us, especially in this Big 12 tournament. And he played well. He was knocking down shots. This is the first time I think Remy's been healthy since like early December. Adding that chess piece in will be hopefully really helpful, because we don't have an end of clock guy. Again, I like Ochai. Ochai doesn't attack much. End of clock, you sometimes need the attack, because that little attack, a team knows there's 5 seconds on the shot clock. Oh, I'm comfortable helping over. That little amount of help, that might be a kick out three to Christian Brown, Jalen Coleman Lands, whoever. That matters. And Ochai doesn't do that. So Remy coming back is really important for us. I'm wondering if Jalen Wilson can turn it up from three. He's only shot 28% on the year. I think he's a better shooter than that from behind the line. Time will tell. I'm worried about Dave and the other bigs. Mitch has played good spot minutes this year. All year he's been solid. Dave's Dave. Dave might go off for 20. Dave might dribble the ball off his foot 20 times. Just depends on the night. That's my fear with us right now. If David McCormick can settle in, understand he's probably the 4th or 5th option, but rebounds really hard, defends really hard, does the set screens well, like does all the little things, seals well, then he'll be a key contributing factor, because the deal is Dave's not bad. Dave's just Dave. He's frustrating, but he's not bad. He's got to kind of like get him settled down a notch, get him going, and not have him in his own head. Jalen Coleman Lands, does he come back and, well, he's been back, but does he start really contributing? Like, what goes on with this guard rotation? A lot of questions for KU. I like our chances because how the bracket got set up for us, but we could contend for a natty. I don't think all the pieces will click together how they'll need to for us to have that happen. Enough of that. Next game, 8 seed San Diego State versus 9 seed Creighton. San Diego State, 23-8 in the year, 9-7 versus quad 1 and 2 teams. 260th in offensive rating, 1st in defensive rating. San Diego State actually shoots the 3-ball pretty well, and that's about it. Offensive profile-wise, it's like, ooh, that's good. So, like that they shoot threes. They don't do much else well. They're just hard-nosed, gritty basketball players who they're ready to defend you for 40 minutes. They don't care about the other circumstances or factors in the game or about their offense. They're going to come out and defend your ass the whole time. Granted, these guys did, again, like they benefit from that whole, like, oh, we play in the Mountain West. We don't play very many people. So maybe that defensive number's a little inflated, but they're really, really good, and they're taking on, as a 9 seed, a Creighton team that's not necessarily the best thing since sliced bread either. Creighton is massive. They're 231st in offensive rating and 70th in defensive rating. So, like a poor man's OD rating profile version of San Diego State. Difference here, San Diego State's not necessarily massive. You don't look at their rotation and say, oh, they're huge. Creighton's huge. They play a 7-foot, 2 6'7s, and a 6'6" as like 4 of their top 6 rotation guys. So they play a lot of size. This group, though, they're only returning about 15% of the points and minutes from last year's team, so it's relatively inexperienced, at least in the Creighton system, with each other. They protect the basket well. Obviously, they're huge. Force turnovers well. They limit their own turnovers. I don't love them, though. I really don't. The just because you're big doesn't always mean a whole lot. San Diego State's gritty. I don't think that they're coming here to lose. They're going to have the mindset that they're going to defend the shit out of Creighton and just make nothing comfortable. So I like San Diego State. Creighton, with the size, hypothetically should do well. But because a lot of San Diego State's efficient offense is from the three-point line, that neutralizes some of that size a little bit. So I have San Diego State minus 2.5, and I'm taking the under on 120.5 points. If you're looking for games to watch, I don't think the San Diego State Creighton one's going to be very entertaining if you like a lot of offense. Next matchup. 5 seed Iowa versus 12 seed Richmond. Iowa's 4th in offensive rating, 188th in defensive rating. Looks like a Fran McCaffrey team. Murray is their guy. He's a 6'8 forward who shoots 40% from 3. You also have to be mindful of Bohannon. He's a veteran leader. He's a really good shooter. He just a few days ago made a buzzer beater to put away Indiana in the Big Ten tournament, so he's not afraid to take and make the big shots. There's a lot of underclassmen on the roster. They have a lot of 6'4 to 6'9 guys, so a lot of like tall, like tall, lanky wings. They allow 10 offensive rebounds a game, which when you have the athletes they have, just shouldn't be happening. Straight up, they should be able to block off better. They turn the ball over a lot, and they don't force many turnovers. I don't love Iowa. When has a Fran McCaffrey team went that deep in the tournament? I'll wait. I don't like Iowa. High variance style. They don't D up. They don't... Fuck. I could probably grab 4 offensive rebounds on them and tip them in. I don't like Iowa. I hear a lot of KU fans on Twitter. Iowa's a terrible matchup for us, and I get it. Like, the whole white guy shooting threes thing is scary for KU fans. It brings back a lot of trauma. I don't think I'd like to see Iowa. I'm okay with Iowa. So, yeah, Iowa's okay. They're not last year's team with Luka Garza, but they could sneak up on some people, but I'm not worried. Backside of the matchup, 12 seed Richmond, 122nd O rating, 138th defensive rating. They're only here because they won their conference tournament. They were like the 4th team in their conference going into the tournament. They have a couple of bigs in Golden, who's 6'10", and Burton, who's 6'7", who are good. But are they going to be able to keep up with Iowa? They shoot a lot of threes, but the issue is Iowa's comfortable in that type of game. I have Iowa minus 10.5, and I have the under on 150.5. So Iowa winning, I think it's going to be a lot of points scored, but I think that because Iowa's going to win by like a decent amount, Richmond's not going to make up enough to end up covering that 150-point over. Next matchup, 4 seed Providence versus 13 seed South Diego State. Start on the Providence side. Ed Cooley's group is 25-5. They're 12-4 versus quadrant 1 and 2 teams. They're 96th in offensive rating, 156th in defensive rating. They have a lot of 6'4 to 6'9, just like Iowa did. A lot of 6'4 to 6'9. They play through Nate Watson in Durham, and that's about it offensively. They defend well, and it's Ed Cooley team. Guess what? They defend well. They hold opponents to low shooting percentages from 2 and from 3. They rebound the basketball well. There's not much else there. They're going to play hard. They're going to play the whole game. That's it. Ed Cooley's going to have them ready to play. They're not the most talented group in the tournament. There were some years, and I can't remember the big's name, but Providence, it was when we had Udoka. Providence had a big who was really good. Throw that guy onto this year's team, they could probably make a run. Not having that go-to player, and in their play style, a go-to big, hard to win games. Hard to manufacture those little advantages when you don't have a guy who does that for you. On the backside, South Dakota State, 30-4 on the year, 2-2 versus quadrant 1 and 2 teams. They have excellent size for a mid-major. First in the nation in offensive rating. They're 214th in defensive rating. They shoot 44% from three. 44% from three. What's a really good recipe for upsetting teams in March? Shooting a lot of threes to keep up with them. They're not going to be out here looking to out-rebound you on the offensive glass. They'll limit you on the offensive boards, but that's not their priority. For mid-major, they turn over the ball a little much for my liking, but this is a super experienced. They also return like 90% of their minutes and points from last year's team. Super experienced veteran group that's been playing together, shoots threes well. Tell me if you've heard a story like that before. Sneaking up on a 4 seed who probably, they earned their 4 seed, but they probably weren't a 4 seed based off of team talent. Got San Diego State +2, under 148.5, and South Dakota State, not San Diego, South Dakota State +2, under 148.5 in the South Dakota State win. Next matchup in the Midwest, 6 seed LSU taking on 11 seed Iowa. LSU's 22-11 and 9-9 on the year. These guys are 5th in defensive rate, 9-9 in the SEC. These guys are 5th in defensive rating, 176th in offensive rating nationally. Will Wade just got fired for FBI issues with the pay-to-play scandal. They have a ton of individual talent laced on this roster from the Will Wade era, because that dude recruited really well, but they never, Ben Simmons, Cam Thomas, throw in some more names, they never got it figured out as a team. There's never a high level of team success. They make the tournament and they just bow out. They're lanky. They don't shoot many threes. They're not the most disciplined team ever. They don't have a head coach. You're kind of getting the picture I'm painting on this LSU group. Backside of the matchup, 11 seed Iowa State, 279th in offensive rating and 30th in defensive rating. This was an amazing year for Iowa State. They came from being bottom of the barrel in the Big 12. They were laughingstock. I think they didn't win a Big 12 game last year, or they won 2. To now being an 11th seed in the tournament. They were 10-12 versus quad 1 and 2. So that's super, super impressive out of them. They're playing with a lot of guys who don't have the most talent, but they make up for it by being gritty, rebounding, doing the small things, defending. Isaiah Brockington is their dude. He averages 17 a game. Not a great three-point shooter, but he's gritty, works the mid-range well. They're small. I don't like how small Iowa State is. I have an issue with that. Lots of two-pointers. They're not a huge three-point shooting team. Grill can get the ball up and light it up from three, but that's about their only real lethal shooter. I feel like Iowa State is a better version of this LSU team, not by talent, but just by how they actually play. They're not lanky like LSU, but they defend well. They're not great on offense, but that's okay because they're just going to defend you the whole game. I'm going to go ahead and take Iowa State +4 to cover, and Iowa State wins, and under 127.5 points. I think Iowa State's miracle season will make it at least to the weekend. Now we have 3 seed Wisconsin versus 14 seed Colgate. Wisconsin as a 3 seed is outside of the top 120 in offensive and defensive rating with a 16-4 record against quad 1 and 2 teams. How bizarre is that? They play in the Big Ten, and that's a tough conference to play in, and I think that plays a pretty big role in that. But you don't see that a lot. They are fucking massive. Trace Jackson Davis is big. They play a 6'9" guy. They play a 7-footer with him. Crowell, their 7-footer, shoots threes. They're going to be hard to play against because they're just big and they're disciplined and they're a Big Ten team. They're going to run their stuff and they're going to play a little slow. Probably remind you a little bit of the basketball you'll play at the Y at 8 a.m. on a Sunday with a bunch of old men. But they're effective at it. and they're comfortable at their pace. They value the possession of the basketball. They find ways to win. Like, this is a really good Wisconsin team, regardless of what the offensive and defensive ratings tell you. On the other end, Colgate, 23rd in offensive rating. They shoot 24 threes a game and hit 40% of them. They could win. They really could. And against some other 3 seeds, they might just. If they played Tennessee, hell, I think it would be a pretty good game. However, going up against Wisconsin, who can match them from the 3-point line decently well and bully them out, I just don't see much success for them coming up. Cummings, Ferguson, and Richardson all take over 5 3-point attempts for them, for Colgate, a game. So their guard trio does shoot 15 threes a game. They could get hot and make it a close game. I'm just not really seeing it. But I do like Colgate. I'm sure some people have them as a bracket buster. I get it. But yeah, I like Wisconsin in this game. I have them -8, and then I'm taking over 130 points. 2 more matchups. USC, Miami. I'll just go ahead and rattle off quick. We're running out of time. I'm taking USC over Miami. Miami has a guard trio that is 6'5", 6'3", and 5'11". I love little guards. They have Charlie Moore, former Jayhawk, former a lot of schools, but I love that guy. He played really hard for us and was a really good scorer. But against a USC team that plays like a 6'8", a 6'9", a 6'10", and a 6'7" regularly together, or somewhat regularly together, at least 3 of the 4, that's going to be hard to deal with. And Miami doesn't take a lot of threes. I'm just worried about it. How are you going to go in and score a lot of points from the 2-point area when you're fucking a foot smaller than every other player in the paint? It's going to be difficult. Going to take the under on this game, and I'll take whatever. I don't have the line in front of me on this one. I'll take the USC side of it. Next game, Auburn, Jacksonville State. Going to be easy. I'm having all of my 1 and 2 seeds advance. Just make it real easy. I'll be chalk on my 1 and 2 seeds. I think Auburn is susceptible, even though they have Kessler Edwards and Jabari Smith and a lot of other really, really talented players. Bruce Pearl teams they do well, but they don't usually make it to the Final Four. They might not have ever made it to the Final Four. I'd have to look. But I'm just not trusting a Bruce Pearl unit to make it uber far, regardless of how fucking good the team is. Because these guys, Auburn, talent-wise, is really good. I have Auburn -15.5, and I'm taking the under. Sorry, Jacksonville State. You don't even get like a little excerpt. So that leaves me on the Midwest, round of 32 games. KU versus San Diego State, Iowa versus South Dakota State, Illinois State versus Wisconsin, and USC versus Auburn. In the Sweet 16, I have KU playing South Dakota State and Wisconsin versus USC. Elite 8, KU Wisconsin, I have KU making it out into the Final Four, and then losing to Arizona. To recap, we'll go through my Final Four. I have Gonzaga out of the West, UCLA out of the East, Arizona out of the South, and KU out of the Midwest. Looking at it now, that's kind of chalk, but I don't see. Colorado State could make a deep run. I like South Dakota State. I don't think they're going to make a deep run. I like Virginia Tech. I think Purdue's a buzzsaw for them, for a team like them. I like Vermont. Gonzaga's really good. Like, I just, it's going to be hard for me to call that. I do have some upsets going decently deep, but that's about where I'm comfortable at right there. But yeah, that's my March Madness guide. I'll be back, hopefully, with Cooper next week to break down Sweet 16 games. Should be a lot less time, and only 1 episode. I appreciate you guys sticking with me. This is my first time solo podcasting. I did 2 in 2 nights. It was really hectic. I appreciate you guys listening. We're going to keep on doing it. But for the first time, I feel like it went pretty well. Thank you guys for listening. I appreciate your time. Have a good night.